Hi, this is Marlene Gibb with What Do You Do? And today's guest is Dennis Cummins. And Dennis, what do you do? List them all.
You know it's a little bit more. I'm a chiropractor, a real estate investor, an author, a speaker, and a dad.
Okay, we're not going to talk about the dad. We're only going to talk about the four here, okay?
Okay, that's fine with me.
And the synchronicity of you coming out, because I just attended, the crew here went to a workshop, and it was AARP, and it's about work at 50, plus 50, and they're going to, that was at the pilot one. And we're talking about multiple careers, because in the job market of 2020, 50% of the population is going to be employed, and 50% aren't going to be employed. They're going to be self-employed in various businesses. So I want to start with your various businesses, okay?
Sure.
All right. So you graduated chiropractic school.
Yep, in 1992.
And then you got a job for $30,000 as a chiropractor.
Yes, ma'am.
And you owed $98,000 in student loans.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, graduating with $98,000 in outstanding student loans.
Right.
And I felt a little tricked, by the way, because what they didn't tell me was that you don't have to be an outstanding student to have outstanding student loans.
Right. So how did you feel? I mean, you knew this loan was going to take forever.
Oh yeah, well that was the feeling that you had, and it's just, but there's no other choices at the time.
Right. Well, there still aren't choices sometimes.
I didn't come from a wealthy family. They weren't able to pay for that type of an education, a couple $100,000. So you do what you can. You worked while I went to school. You took out the student loans, and the great hope is that when you get out of school, you can find a job and pay that loan back.
Yeah, but that would take you, what, 10 years, 20 years to pay that loan back?
It would take a little while, for sure.
Okay, so then when did you get this creative idea that you were going to work at this and buy a building with really nothing?
Yeah, well, that all happened simultaneously.
Okay.
I graduated school, and the doctor that had actually introduced me to chiropractic hired me to work for him as his associate, to work for him. And that was basically a job, but I always knew I wanted to have my own practice. One day, just while visiting some relatives further out on Long Island than where we lived at the time, came across this building that was for sale, and I was like going, this could be a place to have an office there. And my wife and I, she had a job, and I was, just getting by working as an associate. But we kind of came up with this plan, and we were going to take money out of her retirement account, which was at the time was like an insane thing to do. I mean, it was crazy. But we found a gentleman that owned the building, would finance it for us because no bank would touch us. And, really,
right.
So what they did is, he financed the property. He held the note. We borrowed money from my wife's retirement account. And what, if you had asked anybody at the time, this is like the worst possible thing, don't ever do that. Well, it turned out to be one of the best things we could ever have done. But we didn't do it because we knew it would be good. We do it because we had no other choice. I mean, that was all we had. So we ended up buying that building. What happened is, though, that was during the real estate boom in New York, kind of all over the U.S. at the time. And the value of that property went up. So in a couple of years, we were actually to borrow equity from that property and buy another building. And I did that many times over, borrowing equity from properties that were increasing in value and buying. So I ended up being sort of a real estate investor as well as a chiropractor.
And you became rich with it. But your love was always the chiropractic. So
yes and no, but we'll talk about that. My love was always the chiropractic. The real estate just was kind of a means to an end. Getting an office where I could put my office space in, and then creating some passive income through rentals and things like that, which was great. But managing real estate or hiring people to do it wasn't really a passion of mine. It was more of a financial decision of ours to do that, my wife and I at the time. But the chiropractic was absolutely my passion for 15, almost 20 years now. I've been a chiropractor 21 years. And I loved chiropractic, but what I also know was when I got out of school, I didn't know how to run a chiropractic business. So now not only do I have my almost $100,000 in student loans. Now I borrowed money from my wife's retirement account, and we have a note with the gentleman who loaned me this money. And right off the bat, my office didn't change much. So I
So
had
you
to
mean
learn.
you did you? Okay, go on.
I had to learn about getting better at business.
Okay.
Because I had no business coaches. Nobody, you go into school and they taught me how to be great at being a chiropractor. I was good with my hands, great with my patients, but I was terrible at running my chiropractic business.
And you probably, like lots of people, mostly small business people, they love what they do and they don't want to do the business side of what they do.
Well, for a while, I mean, I would have
for a
loved
while.
it if somebody had taught me the business side. It would have saved me a couple of years of financial struggle and hardship. But nobody had at the time, so I ended up getting coaching in that arena.
But how did you find it? At that time, coaching wasn't that big, was it?
In the chiropractic field, there were one or two really dominant coaching organizations that actually trained you about how do you run your business, how do you organize your scripting, how do you take care of your patients, how do you collect your fees. And that was amazingly helpful because that actually really just turned my practices around, where they went from struggling, just getting by, kind of, self-employed kind of person,
right,
into a real business that was actually generating revenue and wealth and helping a lot of people and creating a lifestyle for my family and myself.
How did you feel when you knew you were a small business and you were struggling, and then you had to make that decision to leap from here, right, to here? Can you talk about that? Because that didn't go like within a month. You went from here to here.
No, it took probably a couple of years, and anybody who's in business and anybody who runs their own business, when things aren't going well financially, it puts a tremendous amount of strain. You want to be, I know I wanted to be there for my patients. I wanted to have that positive outlook and that positive energy, but it's hard to stay that way when every day you're worrying about, how am I going to pay the phone bill this month? How am I going to pay the rent this month? Am I going to be able to pay less? The gentleman that was holding my note, am I going to be able to pay less his mortgage this month? And then not only is that's the business side, that's the financial side. And then there's Lisa and I, my wife and I. Money creates a lot of tension in relationships. So there were a couple of tough years. We lived, our office, my very first office, it was a beautiful office. It was all downstairs. We lived upstairs in 400 square feet. We had a little teeny, like dormitory size refrigerator.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding you, we cooked on hot plates. Now, I'm a pretty good cook, so nobody suffered because I used hot plates, but we didn't have an oven. There was no room for it. It was a double burner hot plate. So my wife and I look back on that now, and we're like, remember the days, walking uphill to school, both ways, but, when we think back on those hot plate days, but that was a great experience. It was a great learning experience about, how no matter what comes your way, no matter what difficulties you face, as long as you have like that vision of what you want for your future, and as long as you're willing to look for help and willing to change.
The word is willing to change.
Right. As long as you're willing to do that and willing to put in the work, then things can be different for you. And that's been a theme in my whole life. Any adversities that I've ever faced, and I've had plenty of them in my life, but I've always had an outlook where I always knew, I just know for some reason that things are going to be better. I don't know when, and sometimes I don't even know how, but I always have a belief that things will be better.
Well, at least you had the belief that things are going to be better.
Right.
That was at least a good belief. Really, because sometimes we have beliefs that things are not going to get better.
Right.
Right.
And you still have to do the work, though. I had to go out and actually hire the coaching agency and go to all the coaching sessions and be on the phone with my personal coach to start to change things, and start to change they did. Business got busier and better, and then I was able to do that. And for maybe the first 5 years before it really became amazing, and then for the next 15, it was great. It's been really wonderful, and I've really enjoyed chiropractic, and I loved it. And then about 5 years ago, I kind of got introduced to something else, and I've kind of taken a career change again with a new business and new opportunities and new growth, and just a tremendous amount of happiness.
you still are holding on to the two businesses,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you knew that. You knew you were going to keep those two businesses,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to be clear about that.
I still manage and go in and take care of patients in both of my offices, but not as much anymore. I have associates that work there for me. So I've basically systemized that business so that the things that can be done without me, and that's a lot, are. And if things need me, like certain patients that I do need to go in to adjust, or if I need to do in some testing because of my expertise, then I'm the one that does that.
Okay, so you've got your hands in the business. So 15 years into it, something happened in your life. What was that?
Yeah. And this is the most fun thing about my life these days is the almost the radical change from what I had always done. I'd always been a fan of personal growth. The coaching, the business coaching started way back when I started my practice. But then I'm always been involved with personal growth, whether it's Anthony Robbins or Brian Tracy or T. Harv Eker or whoever. But I ended up taking some programs with a company called Peak Potentials, and it was the very last one. And I got up on stage to do a presentation, just kind of as a goof. And the owner of the company said, "Wow, you're pretty good. Would you like to come and work for us and teach?" And I thought, no.
I've got a business. I got two businesses.
I got a couple of businesses, and I had a daughter with some health challenges at the time, but it ended up, I sat with it for a little bit, and it really resonated for me like something that I wanted to do. And so for the last 5 years, I've actually done less work in my chiropractic offices and really have become a full-time professional trainer, where I go out and I speak to corporations or events or entrepreneurs or business owners, teaching them about the science of communication, how to speak from a stage, how to market or formulate your businesses, sharing the information that I know from my own personal experience, and sharing other people's information in a way that helps communicate it to other people so they can grow, maybe choose a new profession, choose a kind of an alternate path for themselves at any point.
Do you find when people choose alternate paths, there's always the same talents? I find with people, we always use our best gifts. No matter which way we go, those gifts go with us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you agree with that? I imagine you communicated very well with your patients and everybody else, so that was a strong skill that you were born with, more or less, right?
Oh, yeah. And one of my personal development courses was a course on how, public speaking.
Right.
But I didn't take that course with the intention of being a public speaker. When I took that course, all I wanted to do was be able to communicate with my patients better. And it was about 3 years or 4 years until it actually came into that I actually used those skills to actually public speak, to do that in front of people.
But
So
the skill was there, and when the timing's the timing, it happens,
Yeah,
and it doesn't happen before a little.
The little seed of the skill was
Right.
there, and I'll be the first person to admit when I first started speaking, I was not very good. But it's like learning any new skill. It's there's going to be fear involved. There's going to be the gangliness of the uncoordinated aspect of what you do, because you're not used to it. You're not. It's just brand new. It's like anything, like riding a bike for the first time, and you're shimmying the wheels and they're moving all over. And then after a while, then you just get on and you just go after that point. So it's been a learning experience, and I continue to learn and grow. And what's really neat is that the joy that I get from doing what I do now makes it not feel like work anymore. So
in the beginning, it must have felt like work. I'm in Toastmasters, and I do my speeches or whatever. In the beginning, I was exhausted after I'd finish, because I'd be going up here, I'd be so nervous, and then you go like this.
Yeah, a little bit. But have you ever had the experience, though, because this has been my experience, that when you're excited about something, when you're truly like, oh my God, this is so great, it doesn't feel like work.
Right.
And the difference between nervousness and excitement is your expectation of the outcome.
Now, I agree with you. In the beginning, though.
Right.
This.
Oh, there was nervousness in the beginning.
And then it goes like this, and then you think, oh my God, it's over. This speech is over, and then you get to be excited. But
Right.
In the beginning, I don't know if there's the fear. To me, the fear was the biggest thing.
Sure. You know, I remember the very first time I was invited onto a stage to speak to a group of people. You know, prior to that, it was in a class when I was just doing a presentation. But I was invited 2,700 people.
Oh, God.
And all I had to do was like kind of welcome everybody back and say hi kind of a thing. And I remember being terrified.
Right.
But I also remember having a thought that said, this is what I'm meant to do. And it was so clear, and so, you know, so from that point on, it didn't matter how hard it was, how much work it was going to take, how scary it was. Like, I knew that this was what I'm supposed to be doing now, the speaking and training.
How would you explain that when you knew at that moment that this is what I want to do? Because it comes into the book, too. You have a book.
Turning terrible into terrific.
Okay. I did your exercises, and it's the why. The why was the one that was very challenging to me.
Right.
And I think people on some level deep down know what they want, but they're afraid to articulate what they want because they don't think that's what they're going to get. I don't know.
Well, I agree with that. There's a few things that go along with that why. You know,
why.
I think the why people want to do things, the why you would want to do something is so much more important than the how. If you've ever really, really, really wanted something, more than likely you got it. Even though there were obstacles, even though there were challenges, even though there were blocks in the way. Because you wanted it so bad, you were willing to overcome those things. If the reason why you want something is stronger than the environment around it, you'll get it. But what happens is people don't really dig down deep inside, in my opinion, as to what is their why. Like, why do they want to do that? So what happens is they, instead of the deep reason why they want to do something, they have the kind of want to do it reasons. And if you kind of want to do something, well, you'll kind of do it.
What's the kind of want to? Give me descriptions of a kind of want to reason.
Well, you know what, people, I use this analogy in the book, and it's a little bit absurd, but it's the point. You know what, I want a great relationship with my family, and I also want a veggie burger when I'm done here today. I want both of those things. Now, the question is, how bad do you really want it? You know, I don't really use the word why. I say, what do you really want? It's the same thing, but what do you really want? People want things. Well, I want a veggie burger. All right, well, great. But if I go and my veggie burger isn't like the right temperature, or if it's not exactly how I wanted it, well, I'll probably still eat it, and I won't be too upset that I didn't get exactly what I wanted, because I only kind of wanted it.
Yeah, it's not that.
I really want a great relationship with my kids and my wife. I really want a great relationship with my family. So then I'll do the work that does it, even though there are challenges. Even though, you know, listen, Lisa and I fight. We have arguments. So, you know, we're married. I have kids, and they're a pain in the tuchus sometimes.
Yes, right.
They're also amazing gifts or bring amazing joy. So there's the good, and there's the bad, and there's all the difference. But I want a great family. So I'll do the work even when it's tough. If you only kind of want something, when it gets tough, you just go, you know what, I didn't really want it that bad. And you said something before that's really important, and I think most people miss it, is that people don't commit to their what or how much they really want something. They don't commit to their why because they're not sure if they're willing to do what it will take to get there. And then comes there kind of ekes into that the issue of failure.
Oh, yeah. Well,
so if you don't commit to something great, well, you won't fail. You'll never get anything great, but you won't fail. So you'll be successfully mediocre. Ta-da! You know? And most people live that way.
And what do you call them? Tell the story of
comfortably miserable?
No, your horseback riding story. The lumpers, the laggers, and the... What are the three?
Oh, leapers. You know,
I think I love that story because I think that's how it really is.
Yeah, there are people that kind of just dabble along. They take things slow. They don't take any risks. And then there are people who kind of pretend to take risks, that mediocre zone, that middle zone in there, where they kind of go forward, but then they pull back before they ever really get to the end. And then there's the people that just go for it. You know, so in any group, you know, where do you put yourself? Are you playing it safe all the time? Or you're sometimes taking risks but not fully committing? Or are you going for it all the time? When you say you want something, you make it happen no matter what it takes. And to have the life that you want, that's what you have to be. But not in everything. I think it's important to prioritize what's important to you.
So if you're looking at this list and you're saying, well, how many priorities? I mean, okay, maybe there's 5 things you really important in life. That seems like a lot. Just your like your family.
You got family, you got finances, you got career. Well, let's go with 5. That's a good number.
And usually, some of the 2 things are your purpose or your work. I think work and purpose are very interlinked for me.
Ideally.
Yeah, I mean, because most people, if they like their work, they see it. It's their purpose. I don't know where you separate those lines. I mean,
you don't, but unfortunately, that's not most people in my
know.
opinion. Most people I think are doing jobs that is not their purpose, and it's one of the greatest sources of their misery.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you go to work hating what you do day in and day out, you're going to be at the chiropractor, the acupuncturist,
good for business.
or somebody, because they probably would do a lot better if they decided what they want to do, because they'd have less medical problems.
Less stress.
My aunt was telling me a story about an architect that she had. She's an accountant. And he was telling her that he started his company small, and then it grew. And they were making lots of money. They were doing really well. Well, he was being taken away from his architectural what he loved, by being the manager and everything else, and maybe had 20 people. And one day he just decided this was it. He was going to go back and be an architect. So he closed the company and just became solo. And he said he hated all the other duties. He wanted to build. And he got clear after so many years that this is not what he wants.
Right, and probably much happier in the end.
Yeah, so sometimes I even think a decision like that is important. I mean, if you want to be an architect, do you want to be an architect or do you want to be an architectural firm? That's
right.
That's a whole big difference.
And, this is a little cliche, but sometimes you have to let go of something good to have something great.
Right.
And then you also, I think it's important to evaluate for oneself what's really important to you. Is it money? Is it happiness or inner peace? Is it your family? Because a lot of people will work in jobs that they hate for the money.
Yeah.
But it brings no happiness. It brings no joy. And there are a lot of people that don't earn a lot of money, but they're doing what they love. So, where can you find, the ideal goal is to find doing something that you love that can earn you a lot of money. And when you put those 2 together, it's truly an amazing gift.
Right. And that's, I think that is the gift. And I think that has a lot to do with purpose, because if you have purpose, then everything else seems to fall into place, the family, everything. Yes. It's because you're not coming home whining and hating, what you do every day. So I want to go on in the book because I did my exercises.
Okay.
I'm a good pupil, good student.
That makes you a good teacher then.
Yeah, I guess it would make me a good teacher. I did the 100 gratitudes.
Yeah.
Because you start with, that's one of the things. You want to explain that?
Sure. In the book, we have you write your gratitude list, 100 things that you're grateful for. And, turning terrible to terrific is about how do you take anything that happens in your life, whether, and we all have things that happen that don't go the way we expected.
Oh, yeah.
We also have great days when everything goes great, but it doesn't always happen like that. I always say, it's easy to stay happy when everybody around you is happy and everything's going your way. It's challenging to stay happy and positive and moving forward when life seems set against you. So how do you move that forward? And one of the keys that I believe is that you've got to find something to be grateful for, no matter where you are right now. You've got to find out, what can I be happy for right now? Could I share a little story from the book?
Sure.
Would that be all right?
Sure.
My daughter Lauren it was one of the inspirations for this book, and she, through a certain medical condition, developed a very large brain tumor. Her brain tumor, when she was about 11 years old, was about the size of my 2 fists together here, about the size of a navel orange. We had tried chemotherapies, taken her all over the world to see specialists, and nothing had helped her. Finally, we had to, surgery was our only option. So the doctor said, it's going to be a surgery. It should be about 3 or 4 hours. If everything goes well, and they didn't guarantee that it would, we should be going home in 3 weeks. Those that one surgery in 3 weeks turned into 20 surgeries in 6 months. But I'd like to just share a little story about the first one. So we go to the hospital, and we'd been in that hospital, after the first surgery for 5 days. And if you're not familiar with hospitals, they're not happy places. No. There's uncomfortable beds. There's horrible food. It's noisy. There's no privacy. There are these bells and alarms from the IV pumps and catheters. My daughter's laying there all swollen and bandaged. Doctors coming in every 15 minutes. All the interns from the hospital to ask the same questions they've asked the whole time. Nurses are going in to poke and prod and check her vitals. They're drawing blood every half an hour. I mean, it's just brutal. On top of that, the stress that we were under at the time, to see our little baby girl have her head literally cut open, have this and not know how she was going to be when she left. Well, we were there 24/7 for 5 days when my wife decided she was just melting. I mean, my wife was melting down. So she went to this place called the Ronald McDonald House.
They do wonderful things. They do.
Just to get some rest. I stayed the next night. The next morning I get up, I go to shave, and I go to the community bathroom. There's not even any privacy there. And I forget my shaving kit. I start to walk back to the room, and I notice that the gentleman with the food cart pushes the food cart to the side, and I go into my room, and I go back to the bathroom, and the nurse kind of stands in front of the door and says, would you mind just holding on a second? We have to bring a patient by. So I'm thinking, I'm Dr. Dennis, Mr. Medical. I'm thinking I got all the ideas here. I'm thinking, well, maybe they're contagious, and, they don't want to expose us to something because they're worried about MRSA infections and things going on. Or maybe the person is a little excitable. They're a little psychotic. They have some psychotic patients. They're afraid of injury. Or maybe they were bleeding a lot and they were afraid people would be, have problems dealing with that. Or maybe the person was of a certain ethnicity and they had to separate males from females in the hallways, and what all this
you were being a
mind.
doctor. Yeah.
But then they wheeled the child by, and I realized that I had guessed completely wrong. Now, judging by the size of the child, I'm going to guess they were about the same age as Lauren, but it was really hard to tell because the small child was covered with a white sheet.
I didn't know.
Yeah. The child had passed away in the middle of the night. And I remember that exact moment, because in that exact moment I said a prayer for the baby and the baby's family. And I became immediately grateful for everything in my life. The hard bed, the crappy food, the bells, the alarms, the whistles, the pokes and prods by all the doctors, the catheters, the IV tubes sticking out of my little girl, the bandages, the swollen eyes, the face, and most of all for my baby girl, Lauren. And I kind of knew in that instant how important it was to just be grateful for everything in my life. And from that point on, the rest of those 6 months was probably one of the most amazing experiences. I won't say it was the best, it wasn't.
No.
But we managed to make it fun for Lauren. We managed to find good everywhere. And I was, Lauren and I were like the poster children for positivity. And when I thought back on that, I thought back on that instant, as I remember the moment. Mm-hmm. And I thought back, and I kind of thought about my life, and I'd always managed to find, the positive in situations. But I didn't know how. I always managed to find, all right, well, this is working, let's go, but didn't know how. So I kind of had to reverse engineer this thought that I had. And what I came up with was turning terrible into terrific. It's like the how-to manual for turning things around in your life. So whether it's, if you've got a job that you really hate, if you're complaining about it and whining about it and, bad-mouthing the boss behind their back, you're not going to get ahead. Your energy is not right for that. But if you find the one thing that you like about your job and you get really great at doing that, what always happens is people start to get noticed for doing a great job, and they get the promotion, and then they do have the job that they like. In a relationship, you can point out all the things you don't like about a relationship, or you can find the one thing that's working great. So, to turn terrible into terrific, it's not about finding the things that are going right. It's about finding everything that's going wrong and being able to see through that and just find the only thing that's going right. And if you can do that, you can start to move forward, and that's what that gratitude exercise was all about.
I know. And you said it takes 20 minutes. That's not true. I want to tell you, I only got up to 50 in 20 minutes because I had my timer on. It took me 3 days of 20 minutes. Really did. So I want.
and the more you get into that, the deeper you go into that.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to 50 in 20 minutes, but after that, those last 50 were really pulling. But I found from with the reality check of what you want to be, that exercise, your reality, you have to put everything you would like about a job.
It's just another version of the gratitude exercise. Like everything that you do, what do you like about what you do? What do you like about your career? What do you like about your relationships that you're in right now?
Right.
And how does that play out in your life? And how does that show up there? So it's sort of like another way for people to come at what's going right for them right now. Because the next piece that I talk about in the book is your focus.
I found I did the gratitude list, and then I moved into the reality of the kind of job, what you talked about. Right. And I had that that took me a couple of days, and I had that pretty well laid out. And then I'm working through the book, and then we got to the why question. Mm-hmm. And you said go back to the list with the reality check of the job.
Right.
And then I went back to that plus the gratitude list, and I finally figured it out. But it took time to figure it out.
Right.
Because that why was so important. And that was the key to me. I mean, the whole book with all the exercises and that why just was like a little light bulb. But mm-hmm. Wow, it's here. It's always been here, but I didn't see it.
That's one of the reasons why there are two different exercises that sort of go at the same angle, because people see it from different points of view.
Right.
They don't all get it with just this one or just that one, but when you put them both together, it's like sometimes you said like a light bulb will go off. And that's kind of neat when that happens. Because if you truly understand your why, maybe we're going to call it your purpose.
I think the why is the purpose. I really think, to me, that is purpose.
I agree with you. But if you find your purpose and then you can find something to do that fulfills that purpose, now life is just amazing for you. You know, I have 2 jobs in my life that I can say truly did that. That my job and my purpose were one and the same, so that when I work, it's not work anymore. Right. Now, the first time that happened, I was a lifeguard and I was 16 years old.
And you can look at what was one of the purposes, looking at the nice looking
one of the purposes.
Because all the girls were like,
yeah, watching girls in bikinis go by and going swimming at will.
And they all flirted with you.
To go to the beach. It was like amazing. Now, for a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid, that's about as big as a purpose was back then. And it was amazing. And then I was a chiropractor. And now I loved chiropractic. And I felt like I was great at it. And I felt like I had a duty. But, you know, I always thought, there's something else. And I didn't know what that was. I really didn't. I just knew that there was more. And I could never put my finger on it. It's why I read so many, books in personal development. It's why I attended workshops and had coaches, because I knew, I just didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up.
But you did on some level. Once you get it,
I had an idea, but right. Not really, And then that one moment when I actually stood up in front of a room to just kind of goof around, and I got asked to be a trainer. And that second that I stood in front of those 2,700 people scared out of my mind, that's when I knew. I didn't know before that. So now, I know that this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to teach people how to improve their lives. I'm supposed to teach people that they don't have to just do what they've always done. There are other options for them, and that they can also do more than one thing at a time.
Yeah, well, see, that's a big one for my generation, because we were taught to be doing one thing at a time. And sometimes you do too many things, you can get scattered if you're not that focused. Yeah, but the why, and then you found out. I mean, did that one come like the light bulb with your daughter? Yeah,
that was one of those moments, I think, when it was just, I just love this. It makes me happy. It makes me, rather than nervous, it makes me excited. And there was definitely anxiety that went along with it, but the willingness to put in the work to elevate my skills to a certain level, the willingness to continue being coached in the skills of, speaking in public, delivering a message, you know, organizing and running rooms of thousands of people, or just one-on-one. You know, those are skills that, you know, there are people that have been doing this for 20 and 30 years that, you know, or a wealth of information. It would be crazy for me not to rely on them or to seek them out to become better. You know, I found in my life, you know, the younger stages, you know, 17 and below, were all about just pushing boundaries and you know, living for the moment.
They're teenagers.
And then from like, you know, the 20s through, and for me, even into my, you know, early 40s, was all about material goods for myself and my family. You know, cars, nice houses, traveling around the world. You know, that was a big, you know, running my chiropractic businesses, taking care of patients, always doing things in integrity, and, you know, managing the real estate business and things like that. But, you know, there was something niggling in the back of my mind, like going, you know, what difference are you going to leave in this world? Like, what footprint are you gonna leave when you're gone from here? Does anybody know that you even did anything?
Yeah, I think legacy as you grow older is very important.
Yeah, and that kind of hit for me. So, you know, part of that why and that ability to leave a legacy now is really why I love this, which is why I wrote that book, which is hopefully just the first of many.
Oh, this is a very good book. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I enjoyed my exercises.
Yeah, and you know, and that will be around longer than me. Mm-hmm. You know, hopefully, and my message, I hope, stays around a lot longer than me too. So, you know, my mission now is to spread this message, spread this vision, so that more people understand it, get it, and they realize. You know, and now, you know, the next step is, well, you know, what happens next? I go down and visit my mom and dad down in Florida, and
they're retired from New York to Florida.
Yeah, well, you know, what was really amazing, because they have an amazing community of friends, and they've all moved together down there. So they're still in their own environment with all their friends. That now they just live in warmer weather and play more golf. But it's tremendous. But what I see are also people who are struggling down there, who maybe were retired before they wanted to retire, and they're struggling, and they don't know what to do, and you know, there's two ways to go. They can either complain about it and whine and become bitter, or they can seek out some new opportunities. I'm going to say the thing I see the most is that some people think they're too old to try something new.
Oh,
and
no,
I don't believe that.
No, you're never too old.
Well,
no,
I don't believe that, and you don't believe that, and I know, which is why you and I know each other and chat with one another.
I'm having a birthday next month, and I can be great with the denial, but I like learning. I do.
Right, but there are people that are afraid of it, because learning can be scary. Change can be scary. You know, especially when it's a big change. You know, you go from, you know, a job that, and many people in my parents' generation had the same job for their entire lives.
I know.
You know, my dad was a New York City fireman for over 30 years. You know, my mom worked for my uncle, but she did that one thing for 15, 20 years. You know, it was the same thing. You went to work for one corporation. You know, my uncle worked for IBM for, I think, 35 years.
Well, that was very common.
Job. I know it was.
That was very common.
But that's, you know, but what happened is things changed. And so now that's not common anymore.
No.
And now, you know, the people who grew up in that environment don't know what to do and how to handle it, and what can you do and what's capable for me. And what happens is, I think that the capacity to dream of an option may not exist as fully as we might hope that it does.
And so do you want to go after that market with what you're doing?
You know, I don't intentionally try to go. My market is people who have a message to share. That's my market. You know, if you're stuck in a job and you're looking for another job, there are people who will teach you how to retrain your skills, how to repurpose your skills. What I do believe very strongly is that, especially in the you know, let's just say the 45 and up crowd, those people have an amazing wealth of knowledge and information, and that information is needed in this world in some form or another. Yeah, I had a great mentor of mine. His name is Martin Hahn, and Martin said, when you're not sharing your gifts with this world, you're causing suffering. You know, people always like, oh, nobody wants to listen to me. I like to think of it, people need to listen to you. People need to hear what you say. My skill, my mission, my purpose is to empower anyone to share their message. Whether you are a business owner who wants to increase your business by spreading your message of what you do, whether you're an entrepreneur who's got a new idea or product or service and you want to get that, whether you just love teaching and public speaking, I'll teach people how to do that better. If for, and as an option for people who don't know what to do, this is a great job. Public speaking is a terrific opportunity for people, because now the only thing you need is a thought, an idea in your head, and the ability to talk. Now, it may be scary for people, but there are things that you can learn to help you overcome that. And you could start small and grow to make a larger difference. But it's a great way to actually start a new field or transition into a new occupation.
Well, even taking all those skills, I mean, there could be so many topics about what you want to talk about.
It's limitless.
And sometimes those are hidden things in you that you have to pull out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Usually, I find, and I think you said it in the book, it always goes back to the things you loved as a child. Like for me, the interviewing, I love to read murder mysteries. I don't know why, but those are putting puzzles together. And my interviewing, I'm putting puzzles together because I'm listening to people's stories in their lives, and they're amazing what they do with their lives.
Right. And what's really neat is that people think that their life isn't worth listening to. And to be honest, like, I came from a background of very little self-esteem, very little self-confidence. The gentleman sitting in this chair today is not the same gentleman that, was around 20, 25 years ago.
You didn't know where you were going?
Yes, but a complete and total lack of self-esteem and self-confidence was my underlying everything. My personal growth journey was one that I needed for me to figure out who I was, to be able to stand in my own power, to be able to sit here and have a conversation under some lights in front of a TV camera was something that I would never have dreamed of attempting that.
You wanted to be authentic.
Yeah. Well, and that's basically what I teach now. Is I teach authentic sales and communication training, because I believe, you're okay with who you are.
Well, you only have you. I mean,
I know.
I thought
people pretend to be other things.
Yeah, but
and
I wouldn't want to live
for a very long time.
I wouldn't want to be. I mean, it takes too much work to try to be something you're not.
It does.
It really does. And then you talked about, you had, what's it called? You're not offensive, but you can offend.
Yeah, be willing to offend.
Be willing to offend.
Be willing to offend.
Would you talk about that? Because that was extremely important when you pointed that out in the book.
Yeah, a lot of people will sacrifice their own beliefs and their own opinions and their own integrity because they don't want to offend somebody else. They're afraid to state their opinion or to stand in their power because they don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. I think that chapter really gets it. Listen, if you believe in something truly and you feel it's an appropriate place to stand up for what, then be willing to offend. Be willing to take the heat. People always feel, they want everybody to like them.
Well, they're not going to. Not everybody's going to like them. That's
well, they're not.
That's reality.
It may be reality, but what
we like to
common
pretend.
Is not always common sense. Because
Right.
people don't always get that right away.
Right.
So they try to be liked. And, my experience has always been the more you try to get people to like you, the less they like you. And the more you don't care whether they like you or not, the more they want to be around you, the more they do like you, because you are who you are, and they appreciate that integrity. They appreciate that authenticity. So being willing to offend. Now, that doesn't mean go out and piss people off.
No,
On purpose.
No, I understand that. But that story in the book was very... That was, my girlfriend went up to somebody and told the mother that she wasn't treating the child correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And your story was very similar.
Very similar to that, yeah.
Your friend who
About standing up for the rights of somebody who couldn't stand up for their own rights. A little child in a store.
Yeah, the little child in the store, and the mother was out of control, it sounded like, screaming at this child. And there he was, and went up and talked to the mom. Now, lots of us think, where are the boundaries here? Because there's, she's the mother.
Right.
But we see the child's being abused, so where do we take stance on that.
I think that's a personal decision.
Right, right.
But if you find your personal power and you're willing to make those stands, and that being willing doesn't mean you're always going to.
Right.
But, you know, having the wherewithal inside of you to know that, you know, if it really comes down to it and I see that someone is suffering or someone is being damaged because of what's going on and I do nothing about it, well, then you're going to feel that on the inside.
I think so.
I think you have to be willing to make that decision and move forward with something like that.
Well, that's very much a part of a person's authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
That they're willing to take those chances.
Oh yeah, and standing up for yourself, you know, whether it's for somebody else or for yourself, it's not easy all the time. You know, it's always a little tension there. You know, my son Christopher and I were out car shopping.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of weeks ago.
How was that?
He got his license. It was good, but we were going to get him a car. So we go to the dealership, and you know, now I believe in honest, authentic communications. I believe in speaking exactly what's going on in your mind. So we go for the drive, and I let the guy know, because I'm always up front. I go, listen, you know, let's just say his name was Mark for the sake of anonymity. So I go, Mark, I said, this is the very first place we've gone. No matter what you say or how good the deal is, I promise you we are absolutely not going to buy a car today. So I just want to make sure you're okay with that. We'd love to go for a test drive, but if you're good with that, knowing that, are we okay? Absolutely fine. Liar. All right?
Yeah, as soon as you got back, he was...
So now we get back,
yeah.
And I go, all right, Mark, thanks a lot. You know, can I have one of your cars? He goes, oh, could you, they're over by my desk. You know, so could you go wait by my desk? So, and I had to get Chris to a soccer game. So I was like, you know what? Okay. So I go and stand by the desk. Now it's like 3 minutes. And I'm getting a little angry. And, you know, so he comes back with the sales manager.
With the closer.
Who now goes, you know, I just wanted to, my name's Maya, you know, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to thank you for your time here today. And then he starts to ask me these probing sales questions. And now this is where the be willing to offend part comes in. I said, stop. I said, you know, now you're totally disrespecting my time. I had asked for a business card, and all I came over here to say was thank you. I said, no, you didn't. I said, if you came over to say thank you, you would have said thank you. We would have shaken hands, and I'd be walking out the door right now. But instead, you kept asking me questions. So, but are you willing to stand up, or are you willing to let people know that you're not being treated properly? And then it escalated a little bit from there. But you know, 20 years ago, I would have been, okay, yeah, okay, let me give you my name and number. Call me on, oh, wait, Thursday is fine. You know, I mean, that's what would have happened, but not now. I'm pretty sure they're never going to call my house again. But
and you're not going to buy the car there either.
No, and I will never. I will, even if they had a great deal, I'll go find another dealership of the same sort and go get my car from them. But it's, you know, that sort of, but the ability to stand up in that heat, the ability to you know, even though it was uncomfortable, and I was making a ruckus in front of everybody in the hall too. So now people are looking at me, and he's not the you know, this guy's making a big stink, and you know, I don't care. You disrespected me. This is not okay, and I'm going to let you know that. And maybe you don't do that to the next person that walks through the door after me. But you have to be willing to offend. You have to understand why you're there or what's going on too. But again, not offend on purpose, not do it just for the sake of offending. But if the situation presents itself, whether it's something like shopping for a car or, you know, keeping a parent from beating their kids. By the way, if you want to keep your parents from beating your kids, just go. Everybody should be at Disneyland at 3 o'clock. When all the little kids get tired and the parents get grumpy, that's when we need. We need a whole patrol of people. I know you laugh, but you know
it's true. Oh yeah, I mean the kids are wired.
We spent our whole allowance to get you here, and you're going to enjoy this park if it kills you.
Yeah. Well, that happens with parents. You know that. I know. I'm
one of them.
Well, you're tired. You know, so you've been there what 4 or 5 hours.
You got on the plane at like 4 o'clock in the morning that day.
You're hungry.
These little 4-year-old kids, they can't last that long.
Yeah. Well, by 1, 2 o'clock, if they get tired enough, they usually just fall asleep.
Right.
You know. and it's over.
Wake up! You're missing Disney World.
It's over, yeah. But they get, they're running around, and all of a sudden they go, it's amazing, like this and then down. And then I want to ask you, we have a couple minutes left, I want to ask you where you're going now with your next business.
My next business.
But these are very congruent, these businesses.
They all kind of follow a theme
right.
of for now, one was personal growth, and now sharing that growth is my next avenue. We're starting a new training company called Pro Speaker Academy, which is accessible through my name is my website. It's DennisCummins.com. So all of my businesses, my main focus now is teaching and training and writing, but it's all, whether it's verbal or audio or video like we're doing today, or written, it's all the same thing. I believe that my message, one, is about helping people find a way to turn their lives around, but the other thing is giving them the skills necessary to take any message that they've got and share it in a way that's authentic, that's inviting. My biggest issue with people in the industry is that they have a used car salesman feel. It's very slimy and pushy and inauthentic and dishonest.
No,
and I don't like that. I've never liked that.
Come to this workshop and you're going to get all these things.
But then they don't get those things, and they get something.
It's like coming into the big
else.
top, right? Yeah, right.
So I believe, listen, if you think you're going to give them something, give them that. If you want to give them something on top of that, great. But at least give them what you've promised them. I always say, give them what you promised them, and then over-deliver. Give them even more. And then give them the opportunity, if they like, to follow you along. And if you've done a really great job, if you're very authentic about it, and if you've delivered value, people will ask you if they can come along for the ride.
Right.
That's what I want. I call it invitational selling. Okay. You just invite them to come along. And it's never pushing it up on them. But that depends on you being able to understand who you are, stand in your own integrity, stand in your own power, and really be clear about what your vision is and what your mission is.
And when is this launched now?
It's available now. I do speaking for corporations. I do keynote addresses, and I coach professional trainers. So my coaching skill is basically usually limited to people who are already in the professional training industry, and they just need to have a better message. If it's somebody who I believe has a great product and really believes in what they sell, and I believe in what they sell, then I'll help them get better at doing that.
Okay.
And then I also help novices, people who are new. They're like, listen, they've been downsized, or they've been let go, they're furloughed, or they're looking for jobs, they're looking for something to do. Speaking and training is a phenomenal transitional way to earn some income. Like, while people are already working, even you can do it part-time. All you need is some knowledge, the ability to speak, and a basic framework to get that message out there. And you can make a huge difference in the world.
And you're about making a huge difference in the world. I think that's your legacy.
I wasn't always, but I want to now. I just want to make some change. I want to improve things.
Okay, well, we're going to finish up. So I want you to look at the camera and say your name.
Hey, my name is Dennis Cummins. You can find me online at DennisCummins.com. And if you'd like to send me an email, I would love to get those from you as well. So that's simple. It's Dennis with 2 N's at DennisCummins.com. And Marlene, thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was lots of fun. It was great.
Fantastic.
This is Marlene Gibb with What Do You Do?